Hey guys, the wife found all of our lost videos. We had an SD card that had a whole bunch of footage on it. We couldn't find it. She found it. So some of these videos coming up next are actually from earlier in the year that I had planned to put out, but couldn't find the SD card. So it might be a little bit of a jump back in time, but enjoy. We got the 1070 back together. It runs, it drives, the PTO turns on and off. I power washed it, and I'm excited about this. I finally fixed, so right here, let me get my flashlight out for you. This is the PTO valve. And if you can see up in there, see that little valve? That was leaking really bad. There's just an O-ring in there. And you can see my socket's actually still on there. I made it all the way to the gas station and back like that. That's crazy. You take that plug out, there's a spring, a check ball, and then you take the threaded part of the cable off and you slide the valve through it this way, and then you can put a new O-ring on it and that fixes that. But I tell you, I feel like I don't know if any of you have ever seen Vegas Vacation with Chevy Chase, but the scene where they're at the dam, taking the dam tour guide where they can take all the damn pictures they want. And he picks at the wall, and it starts leaking, and he puts bubble gum over one spot, and then another spot starts leaking, and as soon as you know it, he's got his hand stretched out and he's trying to stop every leak. That's how I feel with this tractor. Because I finally fixed that PTO valve leak, which has been leaking since I've owned this thing. And on the way to the gas station, we sprung another one. What a thing to leak, too. The oil pressure gauge is leaking at the line that goes into it. So that's going to be the thing I'm going to fix right now. And hopefully, even though it looks hoopty as heck, that's how we're going to bale hay. I'm not going to put the hood back on because it's not painted yet. I just power washed it, so I got to do some wire wheeling. And once we wire wheel this thing, we are going to paint it. I hope it doesn't look like junk, but we're gonna try it. I've never painted a tractor before, only hay wagons and that rake. So I did get the 3-point arms primed before I threw them back on the tractor, and this is all power washed now. You remember how greasy that rear housing was? The paint was pretty nice underneath all that grease, probably because it's been leaking for so long. But so far everything's bone dry back here. That remote valve's not leaking anymore. None of these gaskets are leaking. And I actually ended up making drain plug gaskets out of, I used one cap from a 5-gallon bucket spout. I used a cap from a motor oil container. I just die grinded the cap out until it looked like a washer, and I put that on because I broke one and I didn't want to have to go to the store. But yeah, so as far as the transmission goes, nothing's leaking back there anymore that I can see. It's just the engine now. So one thing at a time. It's usable. That's the main thing. So also, the wife got me a GoPro for Father's Day. So that's awesome. I hope the audio is better. I hope the video is better. Let me know. Let me know what you think in the comments if you like it. She got me the latest and greatest. I'm super excited about it. I've always wanted one, so we can slap it on the side of a truck or a tractor or whatever, and I don't have to hold a D3300, which is kind of a clunky thing to be riding around with on a tractor. So this should be great. So basically what I'm going to start with is, you can see this is like a copper line going into the back of the gauge because it's a mechanical gauge. What I'm going to try and do is take that flare nut off and cut the line shorter and reattach it. I think it just rubbed through on the nut because it's making a really tight turn, but I have enough excess here to where I can pull it up and hopefully cut a little off and get a good section of line on there again. Yeah, see, look at all this excess. This is actually the oil line. It's all bent up and funny looking. So alright, here's what we're going to try. I got 2 little O-rings here, and I took the nut off of the line. It looks like there's just a little piece of vacuum hose in there, one of those grommets, kind of like what I put on the PTO housing, but for a 3/16 line. gonna just try and chuck a couple O-rings in there and see if that squishes it enough where it'll contact the line again. I am gonna cut the line a little bit shorter. Cut the end off, clean it up, and see if I can't get it to seal better. Got it nice and polished up with some emery cloth. Alright, you can kind of see in there, hopefully. I got the line on. There we go, I got the line on. It did tighten up quite a bit, so let's fire it up and see if it leaks. Okay, so initially I was going to leave this off, but then the dash doesn't have anything to bolt to, and I really don't want anything to break, or I don't want that oil line to start leaking, so I'm just going to bolt this on quick. Alright. Just got a hoister up there. This is probably something that's easier done with two people. But we're gonna try it. Oh, I got it off by myself, right? Alright guys, I was mowing hay with 1070 yesterday, and I noticed the mower started lifting slow and the oil was kind of foaming, and I was kind of thinking, oh, I must have just done a bunch of work to it, a bunch of air in the system to work its way out. Well, it didn't. It stayed aerated like that. And then when my remote valve started getting weak, I knew I had a problem with oil aeration. So I decided to pull the pump back off, because the only area that's not underneath the fluid is the O-ring on the pump, and I'm glad I pulled the pump off because the O-ring was torn. I don't know if it tore when I put it on. I'm guessing I didn't have the pump flush or something when I put it on, because I did get a new O-ring from Case, and when I pulled it out, you can see it's in two pieces, or one piece, but it's split. So I was sucking all kinds of friggin' air in with this thing, and my power shift was doing weird stuff, and I mean, it still worked. I had good trans pressure on my gauge, but obviously at the 2500 side of the pressure for the remote valves was a little low, obviously, because I was sucking air. So Harbor Freight to the rescue. We got our Harbor Freight O-ring kit here. I'm gonna just chuck one of these on there, and hopefully it's about close. I'll know right away, because if the fluid's still aerating, I'll know I have to go to the dealer and get the actual O-ring. So we're gonna pop this pump back on. My gasket tore because I glued the absolute daylights out of it with the RTV. So I'm just gonna put more RTV on it, because why not? That's all we got right now. And hopefully it doesn't leak. We'll see. That's your update. Okay, I think this is probably why it tore. So you see this has a beveled edge. Now if you come along here, this does not. So if you jam it in there like I did, this sharp edge will cut your O-ring. So Put the O-ring in the housing first, and then put your pump on, and then you should be okay. I think, the old O-ring, and it was still pretty pliable, so I just put the old O-ring back in there. There was not one in here that fit good. It was just too skinny. So we're gonna go with that, and I'll let you know how it turns out in a minute here. All right, we're gonna try this again. Now before, when I would fire it up, the trans pressure would take like 8 or 10 seconds to reach where it's supposed to be, and it should be more immediate, so we're gonna try it and see what it does now. Keep an eye on the gauge, see how fast it comes up. I'm just gonna do this at idle, because it used to come up pretty fast even at idle. That is way better. And it's all the way up at the top already. Even at 1,000 RPM, it's up in the green. Before, I had to rev it up a little bit to get it all the way up there. So we should be good now. Put the rest back together and take it for a spin. I just realized that I did all that recording and the camera wasn't on. Here's a quick recap. The trans pressure gauge used to take about 10 seconds to reach to the green. Now it only takes about 3 or 4, and it doesn't have to do it every time, because before it was like the fluid would drain back into the case. Well, I had to cut O-ring. So picture this: you got a straw in your water, you put your finger over the top of the straw and you pick it up out of the water stays in the straw, right? What happens when you take your finger off? Water goes back into the glass because you broke the suction. Well, if you have a broken O-ring or something letting air in at the top, your fluid's going to drain back into the case. So if you have a slow build to pressure every time you start the machine, like let's say you changed your oil, it usually takes a little bit longer for the pressure to come up. If that happens every time you start your machine and you didn't change the oil, there's a good chance you have a leak in the suction system somewhere. And that's what my problem was. So hopefully I didn't screw anything up by having that cut O-ring. I don't know who put that O-ring on. Dumbass. It was me. I'm dumbass. But hopefully I didn't screw anything up. So learn from my mistakes. Here at the Hoopty Hay Balers, we make the mistakes so you don't have to.